friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. Well, I'm here to do another video on my list of recommended herbs. Now, I do this every couple of years because it's something I'm always adding to. As I learn more about different herbs and their uses, I might find some of the previous herbs I used to use, I don't use as much as I kind of lean more towards another one. It changes all the time. And I try to, every time I compile this list together, I do try to approach it from a little bit different aspect, because I get the question a lot that if you could only grow 5 or 6 herbs or 10 herbs, what would be the ones you would start with or grow on their own? Well, I can tell you what I would do and my favorites, and I will do that. But it's really hard to pick favorites because they're all good for different things. But what it really comes down to is you need to decide what it is that's important to you, such as what you need most for your own conditions or your family or whoever is in your care, in your household. So when I started on this journey to start growing my own medicinal herbs, a couple of the top things I was looking for was things that are good to help with the just standard cold and flu remedy type stuff. And I was also looking at things that were good for pain and inflammation, which is why one of the very first medicinal herbs I started growing and will keep growing and keep hanging on to, and so that's something I never want to be without, is the feverfew. And right along with that, one that I added several years later would be the valerian, which is also very good for pain, but helps in a little bit different way in the fact that it's going to help to relax muscles and just calm the nerves. And by the way, I'm not going to be covering, because there's a lot of herbs to go over here, I'm not going to be going over the benefits and uses of each herb. That would be way too long. This is why I have specific videos on each of these, at least most of these, if not all of the ones I'm listing off. So some more that I grow and would never want to have to do without would be marshmallow, echinacea, yarrow, elderberry, comfrey, nasturtium, and arnica. So arnica is a new one to my garden. Now next year I may, once I really am able to start harvesting and using my mullein, that might be something I'm going to add to my list of most important herbs. Now some other things that you're going to have to consider too isn't just what you need, but what is going to grow for you. So mullein was one of those I've tried for years to get to grow, and it doesn't tend to like very wet, cold climates unless you can acclimate it. So I was finally able last year to get some successful plants because my friend who moved over here from the other side of Washington state where it's hot and dry had actually accidentally brought with her some mullein plants, because she brought over some pots, not knowing that the seed from the plants that she'd been growing had fallen into those plants. And then they started growing in the pots, and she had them in a pretty sheltered place. And so what she did then was the next year when they flowered, she collected the seeds from those and shared some of those seeds with me. Since they had sat a whole year in that pot before they got those seeds, they were more acclimated to the area, and I was able to get some successful starts out of those. So those are the kind of things. Sometimes you can acclimate certain plants to your area, or it can depend on where you get your seeds or even cuttings from. But some things will just never grow. Like I've tried moringa several times. I've tried a few different varieties. No, same thing with turmeric and ginger. You would think ginger would do good here, but I did get a good plant going, but as soon as I moved it outside, it didn't like it. So, and some of that stuff, I don't have the space to grow all this stuff inside. So all these are the things you have to take into consideration. So coming back to this original list, comfrey can take up a lot of space in the garden, and so can mullein. It gets very huge. So it's really going to depend on the space you have and, again, what you need. Like mullein, people see that right at the top of the list for lung health, though it's good for many other things. And comfrey is really good for breaks, sprains, bruises, and so much more. And that was why that was an important one, because I was always spraining fingers and toes because of dance and martial arts. So having that comfrey on hand was super important for me for that, and bruising myself because I'm always bumping into stuff. Nasturtium, because I like to use it as a natural antibiotic, and arnica for the same reason as comfrey, though they each have their own individual benefits as well. I like to use the two together for healing breaks and sprains. Yarrow because it's good for just about any skin condition and to help stop bleeding, though it can also be used internally. And the elderberry for obvious reasons, cold and flu, because I can combine that with the marshmallow and some other herbs to make a great cold and flu remedy or prevention, which I have a recipe on out there, a few different recipes. So now let's talk about some culinary herbs I highly recommend that you have in your garden, because the great thing about your culinary herbs is they also have medicinal benefits as well. So that's actually, if you're going to start anywhere, I'd say start with your culinary herbs because of their dual purpose for both medicinal uses as well as culinary uses. So ones I'd never want to have to be without would be my oregano, my garlic, thyme, sage, rosemary, and my peppermint / pop chocolate mint, because I have both and I love them both. I love them both. And I use those in teas a lot, especially during the spring and summer when they're coming in fresh. I use it dried through the whole year too, but usually in the winter I'm doing more spicy teas, but every now and then mix it up with the chocolate mint peppermint. I mix them together when I dry them, by the way. Now, the next category of herbs, even though some of these I grow intentionally here on the property, these are herbs that a lot of people can find wild anywhere they're at. Especially, some of it will depend on climate, such as the nettle. Like people in the UK have very similar climate to what we have here on the west side of Washington state, where it's very cool and damp, and nettle tends to really like places like that. And so I'm sure I could go find it wild somewhere around here, but I do grow it intentionally on my property. But nettle is one I would not want to have to do without, because not only all its great benefits, but it's just packed full of nutrition. Then you also have dandelion, plantain, horsetail, turkey tail, that's the mushroom, the turkey tail, spruce tips, and then if you live in a drier area that has pine, that would apply to pine as well, pine needles, red clover, pineapple weed, lamb's quarters, and usnea. So these are all things that most people can find wild somewhere. The dandelion, nettle, and red clover I do grow in specific places in my garden. Other things like the pineapple weed, they just kind of come up wherever they want, and I let them be, and then I harvest those, use them for teas and more. Same thing with lamb's quarters. It came up on its own in my garden, so I just let it grow, and plantain. But the usnea, the spruce tips, and the horsetail and the turkey tail mushroom I forage for on our other piece of property down the road. Now, what you have in your area is going to vary, so it's going to depend on where you live. You might have other types of wild herbs that grow for you. Now, I'm going to go ahead and list off more herbs that I grow and use, and actually, I would hate to have to do without any of these, to be honest. I just had to narrow it down to a few at the top. And by the way, I also will have a written list. It's actually the last written list I did that I updated, which is why I like having a link that I can just link you to, because I can update it anytime I want. And I updated it and added some more things in there and kind of switched things up a little bit. And I'll put that written list link. It's free. It's totally free. You just click on that link. It'll take you right to it. And you can actually copy and paste into your own document, or maybe even print it off directly from the page. So some more herbs that I grow and do recommend would be lemon balm, orange mint, violas of all kinds. That could be your violets that can grow wild, your Johnny jump ups, your pansies, roses, in particular the wild version, which I believe is Rosa rugosa. I grow cat mint, but catnip. Either one of those are great. Catnip is going to be stronger with its medicinal properties, but I do love my cat mint. Borage, horehound, anise hyssop, amaranth, because a lot of people think of amaranth as just a grain, but the leaves are really great green. And I'll add those to my mixed greens blend. Chicory, holy basil, mullein, calendula, honeysuckle, lamb's ear, eucalyptus. Hot peppers are pretty much any variety. Cayenne is one that most people think of medicinally, but any of them are going to be good to use medicinally. I personally prefer to grow the Chinese 5-color. They grow very well for me. And camellia, this can be the Camellia japonica, like I have. A lot of people think of it as just decorative, or the Camellia sinensis, which is most commonly used for making your green, white, and oolong teas, though you can do the same thing with the Camellia japonica. The Camellia sinensis is used predominantly for teas because it produces a lot more young leaves a lot faster, and so it's cheaper to make your green teas and such out of that as opposed to the Camellia japonica. But you can do that, and you can use the flowers and the seeds. They have their own medicinal uses as well. I use the flowers for my infused oil for my skin cream, along with many of these other herbs like calendula, dandelion, and so much more. And then if you're able to grow these other things, these are things I have not yet been able to grow or just simply cannot grow in my area, but I do stock up on, and that would be star anise, Ceylon cinnamon, cloves, moringa, ginger, turmeric, astragalus, and ginkgo biloba. And another one I would like to try growing is St. John's wort. I tried last year and I don't even remember if it germinated at all. I think it did, but I only got a few of the seeds germinated, and then they just died. So I'll probably try that one again. But St. John's wort, I haven't done a video on that one yet. Like I said, I think I've done a video on all the herbs I've mentioned, and anything that I've done a video on you'll be able to find in my herb playlist. If you want to learn more about the individual herbs and what they're good for, they'll be linking to down below. I have one for Rumble, I have one for YouTube, so you can find those there. And I'm still adding to that. I'm still also updating some older videos I did, like on the echinacea and more. Oh, and right here is just, I'm actually shooting this right in the middle of February, and this is rosemary from my garden. I went ahead and cut some this morning because every time I go out there, I see that rosemary just keeps getting bigger. All through the winter, it just kept growing, which is rather amazing. So I went ahead and just cut some back, and I think I'm going to make an extract with this, with either honey and wine or honey and vinegar, which would be an oxymel, because I really like the one I made a couple years ago. It's great. I still have some left. Super powerful, so very potent. But anyway, so don't forget to check out that written list if you want to have everything written down for you and somewhat categorized. And I do recommend you go through the playlist to learn more about the individual herbs, so you can decide what's going to be best for you in your garden if you're really trying to just get a select few to at least start with, or because you're just really limited in space. But don't forget, you can also stock up on any of these herbs too. Anything that I don't grow, I either get now from Azure Standard, from Frontier Co-op, or Anthony's Goods. Those are my 3 favorites now for buying herbs. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, found it helpful, at least gave you an idea of some place to start. And thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.